Welcome to Bottle Rockets with Alena Sycheva, your top hockey podcast. Welcome back to Bottle Rocket, everyone. We've got some great guests today. Returning are Jerry, always giving us the goalie perspective, and Maeve. He's going to be joining us shortly, who never runs out of great stories. And for the first time, I'm thrilled to welcome Allan Kreda, longtime journalist. Allan just co-authored a book with Ken Morrow. It's called Ken Morrow, Miracle Gold for Stanley Cups and a Lifetime of Islanders Hockey. Hi, Allan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
We're very happy to have you. That makes me want to ask, Allan, Ken Morrow has such a unique place in hockey history. What was the spark that made you want to tell his story in particular?
Great question. Basically, I had it in mind for years because he was the only Olympian who won a gold medal at Lake Placid in 1980, who then went on to win a Stanley Cup in the same year and then won three more with the New York Islanders. So he had this amazing double. 3 months to the day, he had a gold medal placed around his neck and then was lifting the Stanley Cup at Nassau Coliseum. So I always thought there would be a great story behind those two storylines. And I approached him during the Islanders' 50th anniversary seasons a couple of years ago, now 3 years ago, with the idea of putting it all together. And he said, my family's been telling me I should. I've basically, in my mind, I just played my game, worked hard, and we won. But if you think it's worth a book, let's talk more. And that's how it started. My idea that those two great winning storylines should be married in a book, and then taking it from there and having Ken tell the stories of his hockey life.
Can you tell us about your background? Where were you born and raised, and how you got into writing as a profession?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York. I grew up as my brother was a crazy Ranger fan back in the late 60s, early 70s. So the gag line became my touchstone in hockey. And those days, the Rangers were on. You can only watch the road games, the home games you had to see live. So my brother and my dad had season tickets, and I got to see those gag line players live in person in the early 70s. Magical. That got me hooked. And one thing led to another in my academic life. I was pre-med, I was science and math, but I liked writing to a point that I started to embrace it in college, and I needed to do an internship with someone in the field at a high level, and that was Stan Fischler, the hockey maven. So that's how it started professionally. I was 19, 20 years old, working with Stan, helping him out with articles and interviews and at some games. And I just decided I was going to make it my life's effort, my life's work to be a journalist. And it wasn't always the sports that made me go for it, but I came back around to the hockey. Early 2000s, I was working for Bloomberg News after many years with the Associated Press, then the New York Times. So I've had a long life that's basically been carved around the hockey, even though I worked in other realms of journalism, financial journalism, business writing, and others. So the hockey was my start, and now my coming around full circle. And I've devoted the last 25 plus years of my career to covering hockey pretty exclusively in New York with the Rangers and Islanders. So I was the essentially last beat writer for the New York Times for both teams before they were taken over by the Athletic. And then in recent years, I've gone back to the AP covering games in New York and then working on this book and hopefully other books. So at this point, passion projects drive the train. And I feel like the work I can put forward with all my years of experience should have meaning and have a legacy quality to them. So I'm a story of dedication and perseverance, a lot like Ken Morrow. I just keep at it. I keep working. I keep doing. I keep finding ways to tell great stories, to be creative in the modern world. And it never stops if you have a passion for it.
Can you give us a Maeve story?
There's a lot of those. He taught me very early on that it's the people, it's the kindness, it's the jokes, it's the relationships that make the biggest difference. It's the games are the games, but the people and getting to know the players, the coaches on a different level, having conversations about their hometowns, their passions, their charity work. I saw that very early on. Everything was personal conversation. And I've kept that going through the years. I always meet a rookie and find out where he's from, how he's like in New York, what's it like to play here, those type of questions. So I get to those sort of personal connection levels quickly, and those wind up lasting on. And I learned that from Stan early, and his whole life's work's been about that. And appreciating the history of the game. It's endless. When I was young and working for him, and he's talking about the Rangers in the 30s and 40s, 50s, black and white life. But now I understand that now younger writers want to know about the 80s and the 70s, and that seems eons ago. So I learned connecting the decades, thinking about the whole of the game, the totality of it, and being around him and just the energy he's always brought has been an experience. We've been friends for 40 years. Incredible. It's a life lesson that continues to evolve.
That's incredible. How do you gain the trust of players and legends who've probably been burned by the media before?
In my case, I'm very direct, and especially with it's a really good question, because I feel like there's not enough of that thought in today's media. Too often somebody says something, it's on Twitter in 9 seconds. Some things need to be thought out, and I just treated it like I could ask a different type of question or have them see me in a different light, so it's not the same sort of cliched post game. So even with legends, like they've heard 99%, but they may not have heard the 1% I'll come with, and I'll try to be thoughtful and listen and respectful. And I just tilt to the positive news. I'm not looking to be negative. There's enough negativity in the business, and sometimes, of course, you have to tell the story as it is. Facts are facts, but to sort of seek out the controversial or the negative. So I suppose that's part of my approach, is tilting positive gains trust. And when they see your work and see where you're coming from, they'll be willing to talk to you more often. And when you write something maybe difficult after a tough loss, or ask a tough question after a tough loss, they'll respect you for that too. So it's all, again, about the relationship and how they see you. I think if you listen and are respectful and they know your work, that leaves the door open for them to talk to you at any point. And I keep the relationships going way beyond playing careers, because that's when players will really open up and really share years later. So to me, it's not just, doesn't just end with a retirement. It just keeps going. Made friends with families of players, kids, sons and daughters of players, parents of players. So that whole circle of the relationship keeps going. But as far as the tough questions and the trust, it comes down to that initial relationship and connection.
Well, congratulations on the book. It's amazing. I really enjoyed it. And you got quotes from almost everybody in his life. And I'm just wondering, there is one glaring omission. Was Jim Craig not willing to talk to you, or did you just not be able to track him down? Because he's not in there.
He's a bit media shy, and I started with players that I met along the way. Basically, I wasn't sure I could fit in the entire team, so I knew about 7 or 8 of these 1980 players on my own, and then I reached out to several of them, and they said, talk to this guy, this guy, this guy. So I sort of reached critical mass faster than I thought. And Jim's just a little media shy. He's on social media. He does do a lot of motivational speaking. It just was basically a numbers game, and I felt like I had so much from so many. And I also had to go and find Islander legends along the way, because it did start on the Islander side, and the Olympic part was a sort of amazing bonus. So it just added up and kept going. I had to call Ranger legends from the 80s, Ranger opponents. So one of those things, I feel like his voice should be in there in some form. His stories about him are in there. There are plenty of stories. And at some point, Ken's teammates were coming from the same place. So I was trying to find different takes on moments. And again, the Islander legends had to be included just the same. And I wound up speaking to close to 50 people, which I never anticipated. It was more of, I thought it'd be 10 or 15, and it just kept going. There was a string attached, and it was fun. And there was some unexpected stories that emerged from it. So the hardest part actually was getting to Edmonton Oilers players. There's still a fair amount of animosity between those rival teams, and that was a trickier one. So I did snare a few, but Gretzky and Messier also had sought to include. It wasn't as easy as I thought, and I felt like at some point, okay, I have enough stories about everyone. Everyone's mentioned. There were moments in the games. The Islanders played so many rival teams in their runs. And of course, the Olympic team played those rival teams. It would have been amazing to include some of the Soviet players, but from 1980, that was a tall task. I did get Mikko Leninen, who played for Team Finland, against the U.S. in the gold medal game, who then played for Herb Brooks with the Rangers. So that was sort of a neat bonus. And Willie Lindstrom, who won the Cups with the Oilers, Swedish forward and star. So it was hard. If I could have added 100 names, I would have. I agree. Not everyone who should have been in there was included, but it came down to numbers.
So you must have left out some killer stories from the book for legal reasons or space. Care to share one now?
Honestly, there really weren't. Ken is so close to the vest. He kept it pretty much. Here's what we'll talk about. I mean, Herb Brooks was not the easiest coach to play for. That's universally understood. He took the extra step often. I think in today's game, a lot of those practices would have been difficult to put forward. So I think the layers and layers of basically like punishment that he put the team in was as close to the sort of negative side, but it was all for the cause. I think as difficult as it probably was, because the theory was that Herb Brooks thought or hoped the players would unite sort of together against him. He wanted to create a team. If they didn't like him, hated him for what he was doing, that he was okay with that because they turned into winners because of that. So no real negative stories. I mean, the team got along well. Whatever factions you have in any given team, we just kept it to the positive side, all about the winning and the collective teamwork they had to put forth. With the Islanders, same thing. I mean, that was such a different juggernaut where 16 players won 4 cups, and whatever issues players have with each other, I think that's left in the room over time. I mean, there's no reason to speak of rifts or problems. There he is. So we have fun with it. We had fun with the positive stories. And Herb Brooks, to me, I never hear enough Herb Brooks stories. He's a legend in so many ways. I wish I had been in the business when he was coaching the Rangers and had a chance to know him that way as a journalist. I was just a little too young for the business. Stan knows all about Herb Brooks in the Ranger era, and I'm fascinated by him. So if there was an angle that we could have pursued more, it was just more on Herb Brooks and what he put that team through. The layers of it weren't easy. The night skate in Oslo in the dark, the practices, he put them through the toughest practice they may have ever been through the day after they beat the Soviets before the Finland game, because he wasn't going to let them off the hook. He wasn't going to let them take their foot off the gas. He wasn't easy to play for. That's the bottom line. And to a man, most of the players said, we wish we had that chance later in life to have the beer with Herb, sit down, talk to him, a little more mellower. Never really happened. He kept his distance all the way up to 2002 when the American players lit the torch at Salt Lake City. The whole team was up there as a surprise. Herb stayed away. He was coaching the U.S. team of pros that year, and still he let them have their moments. So there was always some sort of distance between him and his team. He felt like the players are the players. They did the winning. I did the coaching. There's a separation there. And I'm going to keep it that way. And he did. And then, of course, tragically passed in a car accident in 2003 at just age 66. So they never got that closure somehow. The mellower Herb, years later, more relaxed, reflective, etc. There's a wistfulness about Herb Brooks when the Olympians start talking about him. And there's a melancholy quality to it.
I had Herb when he came to coach the Devils. I always interviewed the coach. We had a thing called the Coach's Corner, something like the Don Cherry thing, in fact, before Don Cherry. And my first assignment was to interview the coach pregame. And Herb and we became very close. But the Devils' experience was not pleasant. There were times when Herb was supposed to be on, and he'd stick us with some assistant. And it happened too many times. Now, after he left or got fired, because he didn't do the job with the Devils that was hoped for, This was not 1980. This was a whole different scene. And it was very disappointing. However, we still stayed friends. And in fact, we were good friends after. But of the many coaches that I had out in Jersey, which is, of course, Kevin Constantine being one of them, Jacques Lemaire being another, right down to Pat Burns. And Herb was the most difficult, without question. Now, what was going through his mind or whatever doesn't matter. But since we're talking truths, that's the truth on this one. You know, it's like John Tortorella wins the cup in Tampa Bay, but he's not the same coach later on. These things happen. It happened with Alena's favorite team, the Maple Leafs, formerly my favorite team. Hap Day was God among the coaches. He won the cup in 42. He won the cup in 45. He won the cup in 47, 48, 49, and 51. I'm sorry, he didn't win it in 51. That was Joe Primo. But who was he closest to? Connie Smythe. He played defense for Connie Smythe. He won the Stanley Cup in 1932 for Connie Smythe. And then things went wrong, and Connie Smythe fired this guy. And Hap Day was stunned. They later made up the wound was so deep with Hap after what, I mean, we're talking about a guy who started playing for Connie Smythe in 1929. He was still with him in 1949. And to do this to a guy, so these things happen. Hockey is a very intense game, and I can tell you right now, having watched my granddaughter's team blow a 1-0 lead in the last couple of minutes, you wouldn't want to have been in our living room, I'll tell you right now. It's a miracle I'm forcing a smile. Yeah.
The 2004 movie Miracle, was Ken and subsequently his teammates, were they happy with how they were portrayed in that?
They were definitely happy with the chance to be super relevant again. And Kurt Russell did a marvelous impersonation portrayal of Herb Brooks. He's become synonymous with Herb Brooks for young generations. But the movie definitely well received. There was some inconsistencies, though, specifically with Ken Morrow's character, who did not have a beard. Strange. Did not shoot right-handed. He was shot left-handed in the movie. Strange. And there was a play in the film where one of the Soviet players put the puck through his legs, scored a goal. Didn't quite happen that way. So there were a few inconsistencies personally that we point out in the book. Overall, though, I believe the team was happy with it because the movie was so well received and has created an entire new generations of fans of what happened in 1980. And that's been beautiful because young fans, kids in their 20s, younger even, know the movie, want to meet Ken. He never expected that. He's like, wow, people know about it. Who he said he goes to talk to his grandkids' school groups, and the teachers weren't even born in 1980, but they know the movie. And this double and triple layer of fans of interest, I think that exceeded expectations in terms of acclaim. And there are some clips and footages that are out on YouTube of Herb Brooks being interviewed because he was a consultant on the movie. He didn't live long enough to actually see it come out, but he was a definite participant. And there was some interviews and sessions they did with the producers that have been posted, just him riffing more amazing footage in 2002-3, close to his last year. So I think on balance, it was a big win. And Kurt Russell is the one that has kept it going. He's become melded with Herb Brooks in the minds of younger fans.
Alena asked me if I liked the movie.
Did you like the movie?
I didn't see it. I didn't see it on purpose. I didn't see it on purpose because there was only one Herb Brooks. And I don't care if it was Tom Hanks playing Herb Brooks or Alan Ladd or Fred Astaire. Nobody could play Herb Brooks in my mind. And therefore, it's like Alan said, once Hollywood touches it, you know there's going to be a flaw and something that they portrayed didn't actually happen. So instead, I turned on Looney Tunes and Murray Melodies, and I saw Bugs Bunny in action because there was Herb Brooks and nobody else for me. It was like They did a movie about Rocket Rashad, and they did a hell of a job on the guy who played the Rocket. In fact, they had Sean Avery playing Bob Dill, and Bob Dill got knocked out in one game twice by Rocket Rashad. But when you knew the guy, when I did the Rockets book, for crying out loud, The Flying Frenchman, when you know a guy like the Rocket, and you get some schlemiel who's going to play the Rocket, no matter how good he plays him, he's not the Rocket. And guess what? Sean Avery, who got KO'd twice, he did that very well because he was used to getting KO'd as a Ranger, mostly by a Toronto guy named Dave something or other. Forget his last name. He was a very good fighter. Anyhow, it's not the same. Rocket Rashad scored one of the greatest goals of all time in the playoffs against Sugar Jim Henry. He went around Bill Quackenbush, who is a Hall of Famer. Quackenbush played the Rocket perfectly, and he still scored. How are you going to replicate that in a movie? You can't. So that's why I didn't watch the movie. I was very happy that everybody liked the movie. Great. But you know how the song goes, it's not for me. Am I upsetting you?
Not at all. I want to see it.
I know Maple Leaf fans are very sensitive, and I don't want to hurt your feelings. Teabag, something else. Vancouver fans, you can tell them anything, right?
Oh, we've been through it all, yeah. So we're pretty thick-skinned around here, although you will find a few snowflakes that will get a little upset with any kind of criticism. But yeah, me personally, you could say anything, and I've heard it all.
I encouraged Allan to do the book all the way. And I love the book. It's a terrific book. It just dawned on me, was Kenny Morrow's nickname, I owned a nickname in the book.
It was in there. Wolfman mentioned it.
Wolfman, because in Bossy's autobiography, he kind of made fun of the Wolfman nickname. It's a great nickname.
He mentioned this. Also, Al Arbor, Kenny mentioned Al Arbor immediately started calling him Moses with the beard. That didn't stay, but maybe that was Al's personal nickname for him.
Yeah.
And Kenny was only allowed to keep the beard by Herb and Al. No one had that double. Herb Brooks allowed him to keep it because he came in with it to camp in the summer of '79. And Al pretty much said the same thing. Like, you got here with the beard, okay. In some theory, maybe it was Kenny's beard that got the Islanders to grow their own beards in the playoffs a little later and catch on. So the beard lived. He never played without that beard.
The tragedy, if you can call it that, or the unfortunate aspect, is that Kenny Morrow is not in the Toronto Hall of Fame. Inexcusable. I mean, I'm asking anybody, any one of you three, why wouldn't Kenny Morrow be in the Hockey Hall of Fame after his accomplishments? What he did with the gold medal, what he did with the Islanders. They talk about Butch Goring being the missing piece. Well, he was one of the missing pieces. As Jimmy DeVolano said in Jimmy's book, and Jimmy has said it publicly, because Jimmy was Bill Torrey's right-hand man, he said, if it wasn't for Kenny Morrow, we wouldn't have been able to make the Butch Goring deal. Because they had the faith in Kenny, they were able to trade Dave Lewis, who was a pretty damn good defenseman, and Billy Harris to LA. So I'm asking you, why do you think Ken Morrow isn't in the Hockey Hall of Fame? Is that because they didn't like his beard? Is that because that he's an American from Flint, Michigan, and not from Kapuskasing, Ontario? Why isn't he in, Teabag? Why?
Well, the unfortunate part of that is the Hockey Hall of Fame is more geared toward NHL, and his NHL career was good, but there's good careers, great careers, and Hall of Fame careers. And so Ken Morrow had a great career, but it was fairly short. He didn't score a whole lot. He didn't have a whole lot of points. He scored big goals, I know.
Goals that saved that team. What's the matter with you? How many cups does a guy have to win in a row? Yeah. He won 4 cups in a row. He saves their tuchus in the first time against LA. He saved their tuchus in that game against the Rangers, where the Rangers outplayed him. How many? He's nuts. He wasn't supposed to be a goal scorer. Every goal he scored was a big goal. Won 4 cups in a row. How many years did he play? How many years does a guy have to play, for crying out? You know why he didn't get in. There are 2 reasons why you don't get in. I sat twice in a row on the Hockey Hall of Fame selection committee in Toronto, and I saw how these guys operate. You have to have somebody pushing for you. I pushed for Clark Gillies. First time around, he got shot down. Second time around, he got shot down. He got shot down until Arba was put on the committee. Then they put him in. Kenny Morrow had an admirable college career. He fought adversity. His father died at a relatively young age. He was the poster boy for courage. How can he not be in the Hall of Fame? That's my question.
Well, you're preaching to the choir.
I don't buy your answer that he's too short a time or whatever. I'm very sorry. I don't like that.
I'm playing devil's advocate here. I believe he should be.
You can play New Jersey devil's advocate for all I care. I just don't buy it, and that's all there is to it.
Well, you asked me for...
Maybe, Allan, you take that crap?
Not at all. I don't agree. He should absolutely be in. The Hall of Fame is such a bizarre entity, as we know. Stan, you should be in for 1,000
No,
reasons.
I don't want to be in. I don't want to be in. I don't want to be with those clowns.
It's wrong. Ken's career is, in the course of the book, it's come to light just how special his career is. It's been realized hundreds of times over, and I've been asked the question, why? And
excuse me. I'll tell you who's in the Hall of Fame, deservedly so, although it took a hell of a long time, because he was better than Paul Coffey, and that's Kevin Lowe. The American Kevin Lowe happens to be Kenny Morrow. Now, Kevin Lowe is in the Hall of Fame. Kenny Morrow isn't. Kevin Lowe was the reason why the Rangers won the Stanley Cup. Forget about Messier. He was the best defenseman in those series, and the Rangers went 1-2 to the final. It was Kevin Lowe. But, okay, I rested my case, and that's it. Next time you want to talk about another guy who belongs in the Hall of Fame, I'll tell you who it is.
Okay, let me state unequivocally for the record, I believe Ken Morrow should be in the Hall of Fame. Okay, and I'm a guy who...
Now you should be on the committee, selection committee. I don't even know who's on the committee. As far as I know, Moshe Oish is on the committee. He's the chairman. And then whatever happens, because they keep this thing, this is one of the deep, dark secrets. The secret of the atomic bomb was not as secret as them telling you who's on the committee and how they vote and all that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm a guy who believes that the Sedin twins should not be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I believe Ken Morrow should be. So that should tell you how seriously I take that.
Well, you want to know how worried I am now? I can tell that Alena is pissed off at my decibel count. She wants to give me a game misconduct for my stupid Brooklyn high decibel count. But listen, when you piss me off, sorry, I apologize.
Allan, ever write something and immediately regret publishing it?
In my case, I've always had to go through so many editors with what I've put out. It's layers and layers, so not really. If anything, I've regretted not going far enough, but there were always rules and restrictions and issues and things. So I didn't live through a beat writer life of a Twitter speed where you maybe not think enough and post. So I think that methodology is much more prone to a problem where you post something you might regret 8 seconds after you hit send, and then it's already
right. You're right. You're absolutely right. But I would say, and it's not because of Morrow, and it's not because of Allan or anything else. As a book, the book reflected the way Kenny Morrow played, and that's it. Okay, that book should get a prize. And I'm not going to apologize anymore. I only do 2 apologies every show. And if you want me to make it 3, I'll do 3, but 2 is enough.
So Ken Morrow was drafted in the 4th round in 1976 by the Islanders. Sorry, I almost said Rangers. But he was also drafted in the 8th round by the New England Whalers of the World Hockey Association. Was there any offer made by the WHA to get him to come to them? Because they were known back then for bringing suitcases full of money to like Derek Sanderson and those types of players. So was any offer made to Ken Morrow?
No, it was more, it happened, but it was so early, and Ken was planning on college, 4 years of college, so he didn't even entertain a thought of something like that in 1976. So it was one of those funny asides that probably 1% of the fan base knows about, and he barely knew he was drafted by the Islanders. Like, there's a phone call 2 days later that was in the agate type of his local newspapers. Sisters saw the name. There was no photo essay of the draft picks like you see 94 pictures of every 17-year-old immediately now. It's not. It was so different back then. He said, yes, he got the call. The Islanders, Jimmy DeVillano had seen him play in college, wrote him down on his draft list, made sure he got picked in the 76 draft. But Ken's entire focus was Bowling Green, playing 4 years and getting a degree at Bowling Green. And then the Olympic team came calling, and then he'd worry about going pro. So he didn't even think Islanders until hours after they won the gold medal. That's when Bill Torrey said, "You're coming with us." He didn't even know if he was going with them. He thought he might go play for the Indianapolis Checkers back in 1980. So Bill Torrey said he was at the gold medal game. "You'll be an Islander now." That's when Ken Morrow started thinking about it. So no, WHA was way back in history. It's just a funny aside.
You know, that is excellent. A journalist that Allan Kreda is. He did not ask Kenny Morrow one question that I was hoping that he would ask Kenny Morrow.
What's that?
Kenny, is there a bowling alley in Bowling Green?
Must be one. He likes to bowl too. He does like to go bowling. So, and he's excellent at it with his long reach.
Allan, you should know better. Don't interrupt my laugh while I'm still laughing, for crying out loud.
So
earlier, now I know I can read. I've learned how to read Alena, and I know Alena's now had enough of my nonsense. I'm not going to fool around anymore. I'm going to be very serious.
I love when you mess around. So, Allan, what's a hockey figure you haven't written about yet, but really want to?
Another great question. I was thinking about this. If there's one in my era that I'd want to interview at much greater length, and if I could ever work on a book with him, that would be a dream sequence, would be Henrik Lundqvist, because he was such a fabulous New York figure. Watching his entire career here, getting to know him pretty well through a lot of his charity work, foundation work. He's such a special individual beyond the game. I think his story, the arc of his entire story, if he ever has time to really tell it, would be fascinating. And he's such a touchstone for this generation of Ranger fans and New York City in general. He is one of those rare star athletes that stayed in New York City, made it his home, made it his life. His daughters are being raised here. I mean, he loves New York, and he's done a lot for a lot of people, visits hospitals, and gave money to the food bank during the pandemic quietly. Like, he does things way beyond what you'd think a star athlete would do, and he doesn't want the publicity for it. He just does. But he's so busy. He's on television with the Rangers and MSG. He's on TNT national games. He's here, there. He's got his podcast. So that would be, even though I know him and have covered him well through the decades, I feel like there's a lot more depth to it. And I think his life story would be a fascinating collection of bigger stories and longer stories at some point.
You would be perfect to do his book and to show how much guts Henrik Lundqvist had. He had enough guts to make Sean Avery his partner.
Right.
You got to be either crazy or have a lot of guts to have a partnership with Sean Avery. I'm surprised they didn't buy the Staten Island ferry, for crying out loud. But
magazine photo shoot one morning in the June day in like 2010 or so at Tiny's downtown, and I had to be there at 8:30 in June, and and Henrik was quietly sitting there, and Sean was running the show. And Sean said, "This is the only way I can boss Henrik around is here. It's the only place." So it was a moment at Tiny's in a literally tiny space. So it was the Sean and Henrik show, not the Henrik and Sean show. So funny. That relationship was, I think Henrik definitely reined in Sean as a ranger, helped him focus, and Brendan Shanahan and Henrik were the two key, and Tom Rennie, the great coach. They found a way to make Sean Avery such an effective ranger. But the Henrik Sean dynamic, interesting to say the least.
The thing about Henrik is that he's a role model in many areas, not simply as a goaltender, but his whole persona. He's just a terrific guy. And I did ranger work for MSG Networks for many years, but I remember I did post-game interviews, and he was the best under any conditions, win or lose.
I can tell you I would be first in line for that book. I'm a huge Lundqvist fan. So
you can't be. You can't be.
I can like whoever I want.
The line is in New York City. You're going to fly in for that to be first?
Yeah, possibly.
Wait. Do you have the Morrow book?
I do, yeah.
Soft cover just came out with an update on Kenny helping the Islanders win the draft lottery and our trip to Lake Placid in June. So we have one extra chapter on these two factors. Signing books on Main Street in Lake Placid will always be a lifetime highlight for me. The line was out the door. He was thrilled beyond words. People were telling us they stayed longer when they knew he was going to be there signing books. They stuck around town. People were so happy. Young fans meeting him, shaking his hand. The beauty of book signings, I've come to learn, is people meeting each other on the line to get the book signed. It's this organic, happy connection that people make, chatting quietly, waiting. It's a beautiful thing. The people and the stories. Everyone has a story of where they were when the big goal was scored, where they were when the Islanders won Cups 1, 2, 3, or 4. It goes on and on and on. I never want it to end. It's a fabulous experience that sort of organically happens in front of you, and there's no end to it. So we will go back to Lake Placid. We decided that already with this edition, which just came out this week. And then it gives us a whole second season to talk about it, promote it in an Olympic year on top of everything else. So the back cover has his gold medal on it, which he brings around to some of the signings. Amazing. People try it on, hold it. Incredible. It's heavy. Original blue ribbon that it came on. It's fabulous. He carries it in a special box.
Send me a copy and put it on Alena's tab.
Okay. Yeah,
I just want to mention, because Allan scored a bullseye in terms of the fans being there for a signing. And the most gratifying one that I ever had was with Rocket Richard. The book I did with the Rocket came out pretty long after his career. And we had a book signing at the Garden, but not in the Garden. Cosby's had the hockey store on 31st Street. And it was very hard to tell what kind of reaction, because the Rocket had been out of the NHL for a number of years. This was in New York, and it didn't get a big advance. And I'll never forget it, because the line went out of the store and down. It went east on 31st Street all the way to 7th Avenue. And the fans, and we're talking about Ranger fans, basically. The fans were like they were seeing a hockey god, which he was. Rocket was a hockey god. But the interplay, I mean, if a guy is there with Kenny Morrow and he saw the Olympics, or if the guy who's there watching the Rocket, whether he was a Rocket at the Garden or in the Forum, and you're there, and wow. Because the Rocket away from the rink was like nothing like he was on the ice. He was, in a way, he was like Kenny Morrow. He was a very down-to-earth, regular guy. And, of course, that even added to, you remember the Rocket was having stick fights and this and that and the other thing. And he was admired and hated at the Garden because of what he had done. So an analogy there.
What year was that signing at the Garden?
That's a very good question. The Garden opened in 68 and the Rocket retired in 60. So this was probably around 1970.
Wow. Wow.
1970.
There's a iconic photograph of the Rocket shaking hands with the goalie after a playoff series, and they're both battered and bloody and bandaged. And was that Sugar Jim Henry?
Yes, and that's the goal I was referring to, because I actually examined it in different ways. First with the Rocket, of course, which is in the book. But do you know who he went around to score the goal?
No, I have no idea.
First, the Rocket was knocked out. He had a concussion. He was hit, a dirty hit by Leo Labine of the Bruins, who was a very tough player. He was like a broad Marchand, only bigger built. And he was carried off the ice. Nobody thought he was going to drop dead for what the hell happened. And anyhow, he was told that he couldn't come back on the ice. But then it was the third period, and the game was tied. And Rocket wanted to sit on the bench. And now he's sitting on the bench. And now it comes to this particular moment where he's back on the ice. Now, the play it started in the Montreal zone along the right boards, and the Rocket took off along the right boards, and now he's over the Bruin blue line, and one of the best defensemen of all time, who's in the Hall of Fame, Bill Quackenbush, was taking him one-on-one, and Quackenbush took care of him. He took him one-on-one right into the corner, the right corner, and Quackenbush thought that this was the end of the play. And of course, the Rocket was already bleeding. And what the Rocket did, even though he was in the corner, he bulled his way out, came out in front, and then beat Sugar Jim Henry for this marvelous goal. But here's the postscript. In the dressing room, they asked the Rocket to recall the play, and he couldn't remember it. He was still.
Wow.
And so this guy basically scored a goal almost subconsciously. Arguably the greatest goal ever scored. And so in one of my books, Hockey Stars Speak, whatever. Anyhow, I had a chapter on Bill Quackenbush, and Bill Quackenbush said, what more could I have done? I played the Rocket perfectly. I got him all the way down into the corner. And the son of a gun wouldn't stop. That was the Rocket. Where everybody else would stop, the Rocket would keep going. Emil, that's our Rocket story. Emil Francis was when he was playing goal for the Blackhawks. And he said the Rocket scored a goal with two defensemen on him. Johnny Mariucci and Siebert were on him, and he scored a goal with two guys on him.
Unbelievable stories, Stan. Only the Rocket would do that. Speaking of legends, Allan, are you still a Rangers fan, right? What's your pick for the Cup this year? Who is going deep? Who is making the finals, and who is taking it home?
Excellent question for October 4th. Good question. Edmonton.
You are when the time comes.
Edmonton's frustration has to pay off. I just don't know how exhausted they are, having been through back-to-back Cup losses. First time since the 77-78 Bruins. The team has endured that. A lot to ask to them to get back to it. Florida going for 3, but missing their captain Barkov right off the bat. Kachuk missing months. Super tall task. The hockey world will realize once again how amazing the Islanders' 19 straight series wins is, as Florida tries to get past 8. So super tall task. I don't know if either team has enough to get back to it. It's just the grind of it all is 4 rounds, 4 best of 7s. Way too tough. I always look at Colorado as a threat with their firepower. The goaltending holds up. Carolina, if they have enough to get to it, they have probably the best coach in the East. who hasn't been able to win it all, Rod Brindamore. So I always look at them as a high favorite. But there could be surprises. Montreal with Marty St. Louis is a team on the rise. They have super rookies and super young players, young goaltender. I mean, who knows? They could win a division if they put it together this year. The Leafs, of course, always in the mix. The pressure that goes with it. Maybe Mitch Marner not being there. Maybe some other stars emerge. Can't count them out ever. The Rangers, a gigantic wild card to me. I don't know what to quite expect there. Mike Sullivan, new coach, different energy, same underperforming team as last year right now. So till proven otherwise, I see them in the middle of the division. And I think the Islanders will surprise on the upside. I feel like Patrick Roy will coach at a higher level. He's got a new GM, a new energy, a new vibe, some new players. I feel like they could be the surprise of the Atlantic Division and finish in the top 3. But it's so hard to think about cup runs on October 4th.
Well, my point is that if you had enough time, Allan would pick 32 teams. I told you last week, correct me if I'm wrong, Teabag, Alena, that there is such a thing as the unseen hand. The unseen hand has already stricken Florida. Tkachuk is out also, right? And a cockamamie injury that happened, right? That's the unseen hand. The unseen hand ignores the Maple Leafs as long as Tavares is there. And she's laughing. She's laughing. I am saying, in spite of Allan, the unseen hand is looking very carefully at the Broadway Blue Shirts because this is their 100th, their centennial anniversary. And the odds against the Rangers in the Hockey News yearbook is 21-1. But it's not going to be Edmonton because as long as Connor McDavid is in Edmonton, they're not going to win because he can't carry the team. He's a wonderful hockey player, and he's going to tell us when he's going to sign the contract in 2035. That's when he's going to finally tell us when he's going to sign a contract. This stupid holdout thing is ridiculous. I say the unseen
hand is going to grab McDavid.
Bring him to the Leafs. And we're going to win the cup. That's the unseen.
I told you they got the best goalie.
Yesterday he was standing on his head. Over 40 shots he saved.
Well, we still lost, but doesn't count. It's preseason.
Well, my prediction is the Canucks will go 82-0 and then win 16 straight playoff games and then and the whole cup. But
fantasy league.
So far, you're right.
Yeah, but coming back down to earth, Edmonton, I think, is favored, but I really don't like their goaltending. Skinner and Pick, they're good. I just don't think they're enough to get them over. What I would like to see is they've got this young rookie, well, not a rookie anymore, but he's in the American League, this Olivier Rodriguez, and he is he could be the unseen hand. So I think if they give him a shot, I think maybe because he definitely has the pedigree and the potential. So I'd like to see that. But as much as I hate them, I have to pick Vegas.
Why do you hate them?
Just because they didn't pay their dues. They were good right away. Expansion teams are supposed to suffer for a minimum of 5 years, and then they can become good. But they won the lottery, and they just were Stanley Cup contenders, and they've already won a cup, before my Canucks. And so I hate them. I'm sorry.
This is the beauty of this show. You learn something new every day, and this is the teabag rule. You've got to suffer before you win.
That's right.
I didn't know that. Very happy to know that.
Now it's Colorado Rockies, New Jersey Devils. It took them a long time.
Colorado. Who got Brock Nelson?
Avalanche.
That's the team to worry about, for real. No unseen hand. He's a wonderful guy. He's a wonderful player, and he's going to be terrific for them. See, that's the thing with the Rangers. That this guy, Prince Igor, has to be great this season, and he has to make up for his foolishness from last season. So that's part of an equation. But then again, what do I know about goaltending? T-Bag is the goaltending expert. Who is the best playoff goalie right now?
I really like Shesterkin. I do. I know he took a step back last year. For my money, him and Vasilevsky, the two Russian goalies, they are always the factor that you have to add in. And I like Shesterkin. To me, I think he's 29 now. He's coming into his prime as a goalie, and I think he's the athletic guy that just can win games by himself. The rest of the team can be off and he'll stand on his head. And actually, the only team that makes him look human is Vancouver. For some reason, Vancouver has good success against Shesterkin, but I just really like that guy. I love watching him play.
What about Bobrovsky? You think he's
getting old now. I think he's in the last year of his 10-year contract, so he's got to start, aging pretty soon.
That was a gratuitous slap at me. I have to age no soon. What is this? Pretty soon.
I mean, for his athletic career. I mean, so like say in the movie Moneyball, they said we're all told that we can't play the game anymore, but some are told at 20, some are told at 40, but we're all told. I think Bobrovsky's time is coming.
I have only one function on this show, and that is to get Alena to smile. I'm surprised you didn't comment on my hairdo.
Beautiful. I didn't see the curls that you were doing, but
I didn't see anything because I didn't do anything. My question is, why is McDavid waiting so long, and is this a slap at Edmonton and the fans? Why doesn't he come clean, just like Tavares didn't come clean with the Islanders? Why is he waiting so long? And why haven't the genius insiders like Eliade Friedman and Darren Dreger, why don't they tell us what's going to happen? This is a key question.
Agents was always my theory with holdouts and such.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say the same thing. He's got advisors and his agents and his managers, and they're probably giving him the advice of what's going on. You can't lay all your cards on the table. I agree with that. But you got to give an indication to the fans because they're the ones that are paying your salaries.
All he had to do was what the guy in Minnesota did. Kirill, what did he do? They came to an agreement and he signed. He's making a fortune. We know that McDavid is going to make a fortune. We know that he's going to be the richest guy in the history of hockey. So what it was, either do it or don't do it. But he knows everything there's to know about Edmonton. His wife has got 2 stores there. He loves Edmonton. He loves the city. He loves Leon. What more does he want? Make up your mind already, for crying out loud.
Oh, he made up his mind. I think he's going to pull Marner and Oilers. That's why he's staying quiet. He kind of dodges the question about whether he's going to stay or go. He's going to walk. Oilers didn't make any changes. Their goaltending is terrible, and they lost a few players. They basically did nothing.
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And imagine Kaprizov got 136 million. How much McDavid is going to get?
Right.
It could approach 200. So I guess we'll all end on an agreement. And I just want to say once again, congratulations on the book, Allan. It is fantastic, a great read, and I enjoyed every sentence, and your writing is impeccable. I would be so proud if I had written that. Just like, man, so good.
I'm so honored to share the screen with Stan, where I learned everything.
It's unbelievable.
Incredible.
Congratulations on an incredible book. Yes. Yeah. And it's available on Amazon and the stores, right?
Yes. It's all Amazon, the paperbacks there, the Kindles there, the hardcovers. There's still some hardcovers. So there's 3 versions of the book. It seems like everything is directed towards Amazon these days, but we hope to do some live signings in the New York area again this season. But the Amazon's the place for the book. And the book cover is very nice and has this bonus chapter of Ken's secret sauce for winning the draft lottery.
It's a pleasure. Teabag, Maeve.
Thank you, Allan.
I'll see you guys next week.
Yep. See you, Maeve. See you, Allan.
And I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Thanks again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Allan.
Sure.